I'd like to talk a little bit about Moses right now. We don't know how old Moses was when he left the care of his parents and went to the royal Egyptian court. I feel very confident that he knew he was different. I'm sure there were visible differences in the ethnicity. I have a feeling that he had memories of his parents, whether he was turned over at a very young age, or whether it was more like a kindergarten or a grade school age. We don't know exactly, but it's pretty hard for me to fathom that he didn't have some concept that he was Hebrew and not Egyptian. I also think that he put together fairly early on that God had plans for him, and he could see that he was being trained to do a great work. And I think at some point he knew that he was going to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. And I think that's why he took that first step at 40 years old to deal with a taskmaster. What he didn't expect, however, was that the Israelites were going to turn on him. They're going to rat him out. He fled from Egypt, met a shepherd, Jethro the Midianite, got married, and he himself chased sheep through the wilderness for a while. And we got to remember what he was taught in the Egyptian court is that shepherds and herdsmen were the lowest of the low. So here he went from approaching the prince of Egypt to being the absolute worst, the dirtiest job that he could possibly get. And I have a feeling if you could get in a time machine and go back to 2 days before the burning bush experience, and you were to ask Moses what happened, he would view himself as a failure. Here he thought he had this chance. He was going to fix this wrong. He was going to lead his people, his nation, his tribe out of bondage into freedom. And somehow he messed it all up. Now here he was, one lone man out in the wilderness with a bunch of sheep, didn't like to listen very well, that he must have done something wrong and now he's being punished. That wasn't the case at all. The job that God had in front of Moses required that he didn't just get the training in Egypt, but that he got the training as a shepherd, that he understood humility and patience, learned how to work with people who didn't want to be led, that wanted to be rebellious. He had to go through that entire process so that at 80 years old, when God did come to him and say, now is the time to go rescue my people from Egypt, that he would actually have the skills and experience that he needed to do the job. Moses didn't know at each of those stages where he was on the path. And the reality is, we don't either. It's very easy for us to zoom in the close and the near term and to think, we failed. We're not who we're supposed to be. Things aren't going right. We're facing financial issues or job problems or relationship issues. We must have messed things up. Maybe we're being punished. When are we ever going to get things to go our way? But it's entirely possible. In fact, maybe more than that, maybe it's entirely probable that we're on a path of training, that God has a goal for us and he needs us to gather skills and experience for us to do that. I think we need to allow ourselves that we, in our course of training, are going to make mistakes, that we are going to trip and fall. But the real question is, are we going to learn from those events and become the skilled and experienced worker that God needs? Or are we going to give up, throw up our hands and say, if I can't have it the way I want it now, then I just can't have it at all. I think we need to stick to it, keep pushing, and allow that God has a path in front of us, and it's the best path for us. And at some point, it's going to make sense, just not right now.